Just to go back over what happened this week, we had the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor announce that he was seeking arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister, the Israeli Defence Minister and 3 senior Hamas leaders. It could take some time for the court to actually decide whether to issue those warrants, but the fact they were bundled up like that did draw condemnation from the US President and others.
Let me be clear. We reject the ICC's application for arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. Whatever these warrants may imply, there is no equivalence between Israel and Hamas.
This is a deeply unhelpful development. Of course, it's still subject to a final decision, but it remains deeply unhelpful nonetheless. There is no moral equivalence between a democratic state exercising its lawful right to self-defense and the terrorist group Hamas.
So look, there were other leaders who were more supportive of what happened here, but these are, of course, 2 key Australian allies, AUKUS partners, Five Eyes partners. The Australian Prime Minister, however, was unwilling to criticise this move from the Chief Prosecutor.
Well, I don't comment on court processes in Australia, let alone court processes globally, of which Australia is not a party.
Do you agree with Joe Biden's comments, and is it...
I just answered the same question.
He did, though, later in the week acknowledge and make it clear that he does not believe there should be any equivalence between Israel and Hamas.
There is no equivalence between a terrorist organisation like Hamas that we support, that ongoing classification of Hamas as a terrorist organisation. They confirmed on October 7 with the violent murders and the capturing of hostages that occurred on October 7, that was the right designation for them to have. And that compares and should not be compared with any nation state.
Sean, how do you think the PM handled this as far as Australia is concerned this week?
Look, I think you have to always be aware of the context of this debate, and the context is that this has become a tremendously bad faith debate, that anything anybody says is likely to be twisted. There is no nuance. There is a series of code words, passwords you have to kind of say before you move on to saying anything else to be admitted entry into the debate. It's become it's become a sad debate, I think, and I'm sure the Prime Minister, I'm sure that's a big factor in the way that the Prime Minister approached that, and he refused to comment largely. I think that is a reasonable position at this point when the court, the 3-member panel of the court, hasn't yet handed down a decision on the prosecutor's warrant or application for warrants. If that panel rejects that application and the Prime Minister really strode in strongly, then I think he risked looking a bit silly in a few weeks. But after that, I think he'll come under increased pressure in both directions, and it'll be interesting to see whether he matches the force of some of his ministers' comments this week defending the independence of the court.
Yeah, Sam, what do you think? Because the way this was presented by the ICC Chief Prosecutor did seem to draw some equivalence, right? The fact that he was issuing or asking for these warrants for both.
Because he bundled them together. Look, I disagree with Sean. I think that the Prime Minister mangled it. I don't think that his response is reasonable. And that's not to say that he needed to come out strongly, in one direction or the other. But I think that he projected weakness, he projected confusion. He said a whole bunch of things suggesting we're not involved. Well, we are, because we're signatories to the ICC. Now, there's a whole bunch of debates now in terms of, no, we're not a party in terms of, in the actual conflict, but we are a signatory, we are involved in the ICC, we have embraced it. And there's a whole debate now with, Alexander Downer and people that, in a sense, dragged the Howard government, in some cases, kicking and screaming to this. They had a huge debate about it, now saying that they've done the wrong thing. And I think that regardless of the fact that it's a bad faith debate, and I understand where you're coming from there, I don't think that justifies the way in which the Prime Minister responded to it. Part of me, kind of thinks, what on earth was happening when they were sitting down working out how he was going to respond to these questions? But ultimately, that's a bad kind of response as well, because he is the Prime Minister. He should know how to answer these questions. He should have a firm view on it and not run terrified away from the question.